From the flight deck of the astral plane, this is your captain, Starpilot33, checking in with flight log number 14. The last trip was months ago, October in fact, and while I really did intend to trip one more time before the end of the year, it just didn't happen. I had inflamed corneas in both eyes that required steroid drops and antibiotics thanks to a 20-year-old air conditioning unit that had to be replaced. The air handler is in a closet. When they took that thing out, 20 years of dust, allergens, and mold were released into the house. And the front door was open all day, and it was rainy and windy, so all of it was blowing around. It must have gotten in my eyes, and my cat Romeo must have breathed it in, because shortly thereafter he started coughing and sneezing. The vet was no help at all and said he was fine, probably allergies. Then it was Christmas, and I was out of town taking all 3 cats with me. Romeo was still coughing and sneezing, and his appetite was bad. Co-pilot Cat started another episode of his psychogenic alopecia, which is a fancy name for pulling your own fur out because of allergies, stress, boredom, senility, etc. We don't know why he started doing it again, because he's been on medicine to control it ever since last year. So I doubled his dose back to the original amount, but so far it hasn't made a difference after 4 weeks. So he has to wear a soft cone. He hates the onesie pajamas and was miserable no matter which ones he wore. He doesn't like it when his legs feel restricted or that overstimulated feeling of having something touching his whole body all the time. So he was better with the soft cone, but I wanted to find one that was smaller and more comfortable. I found one that suited him, and he didn't seem to mind it. Romeo was finally diagnosed with bronchitis 3 months after he got sick, and it's taken 2 rounds of antibiotics and a steroid shot to get him under control. The next step is taking co-pilot to an allergist because his steroid shots aren't working, and now the medicine to control the OCD isn't working either. Anyway, all of that being the prologue and list of excuses for why I've been missing for a while. All that time I was falling back down into a cycle of self-defeating and self-critical thoughts that had me in a bad place once again. When asked by a friend what my intentions were for this trip, I said, to remember who I am again outside of these responsibilities, work stress, constant drama with sick cats, and all the rest that life throws at me. I want to heal and return to my true self. Saturday night was a no-go thanks to loud neighbors across the fence. When I trip, my hearing is like superhuman. I can hear sounds outside at distances I would never be able to hear otherwise, even with the windows closed. I like to have the sliding door open so the cool night air can come in through the screen. Constant sounds like birds or the hum of an air conditioner are one thing, but voices, beer cans opening, yelling, none of that is conducive to having a good experience on a trip. It's a bad setting that creates a bad mindset, and that sets you up for trouble. I took Monday off from work as a recovery day in case I decided to launch on Sunday night. I've, quote, intended to trip almost every weekend since I got back from Christmas, but every weekend there was some reason why I was too tired, too stressed, the setting wasn't right, or something. Last week I canceled and I didn't even know why. It seemed like it was a good night to do it. It was quiet, the neighbors were somewhere else that night, but yet I canceled anyway. Now there was this feeling of guilt and feeling like a failure for being a chicken shit. Captain Chicken Shit, according to me. Overthinking. The longer I go without a trip, the more I overthink it, and that just delays it more and more when it's the one thing I really need to do. What am I afraid of? Honestly, I don't know. I've had my ass kicked several times and survived, been through all kinds of mind-shredding vortices of darkness and sent to the bottom of the abyss and faced evil stuff and all that, but I've also had some of the best adventures of my life. So why was I always prioritizing everything over the one thing I needed to do most? That was one of the questions I wanted to ask me on this trip. Little did I know when I woke up on Sunday that the trip that I've been waiting for, the one I've been training for all these years, was about to happen if I would just eat the damn mushrooms, as me always said. Throughout the day on Sunday, I tried not to think about the trip. Just have a quiet day, do some drawing, listen to my chosen fight song for the trip, which was St. Elmo's Fire. If you're unfamiliar with that song, it's a great one and you should check it out. I listened to that while I was driving to and from wherever throughout the day. I took 2 ginger capsules before I left to go feed cats at the farm, and that was my insurance against any really bad nausea. I was able to get back home ahead of schedule for once, fed the cats, saged the outside of the house to prevent any asthma events with co-pilot or any irritation with Romeo's bronchitis. I did all my pre-flight rituals, had the blankets, water, chapstick, pillows, an emergency landing strip bucket, just in case. I sat on the couch with my special little snack for the night, 4 grams of PE mixed with frosting in between halves of a mini pound cake, just like before. These mushrooms were grown a little bit differently from the others. I got an all-in-one grow bag as a gift from the vendor where I get my grain and substrate, so I colonized it with the same liquid culture that I used for the others. But the plan was to spawn the bag as a single log on a rack inside a shotgun fruiting chamber instead of a monotub. This is where all those little small holes are drilled on all 6 sides, and all you really need to do is mist it occasionally. It holds humidity just fine, there's ample gas exchange. I didn't get very much from the log, maybe 30 grams dry total, but it was a fun experiment. Even so, I wondered if the way it was grown would have any influence on the kind of trip compared to the other mushrooms. So I said my prayers and took a bite. Just then, I heard loud voices across the fence. The neighbors always seem to yell at each other, even in normal conversation. Oh no, I thought, please don't start tonight. I'd already taken a bite, and there was no going back now. I took another bite, wondering if I'd have to trip in another room to get away from the noise, but then I'd miss me in the green light by the ceiling. Please let them shut up tonight, I prayed. After that, I didn't hear anything else from them, thank goodness. I was all fueled up and ready to go at 6:15 p.m. just as the sun was setting. I settled in on the couch and waited. In the past, I'd tried to distract myself on the come up with a movie or something to dampen the feelings of anxiety as the medicine took effect. Now I just sit and wait. I try to calm my mind and take deep breaths, close my eyes, and notice the subtlest of changes to the usual darkness when I close my eyes. First, there's nothing. Then the darkness has a strange depth, then volume. Then the faintest patterns begin to emerge. I can open my eyes at any point I choose. I'm not being dragged under or anything at this point. I think it's interesting now to sit with it in the earliest minutes of the medicine taking effect, because that's where I tend to see curious entities checking me out and look at me as they go past on their way. Often one will come really close and look at me and with wonder, and then slowly pass by or overhead in a curved motion, as if it was a reflection on a spherical metal orb or something. This time I encountered another traveler. This makes the 4th time I've run into another person in trip space. His name was Damon Ross, but he explained Ross is actually his first name and Damon is his middle name, and he said he was in Ohio. I said I was Starpilot33, and I wished him a blessed trip, and we went on our separate ways. Damon, if you happen to find this video, that was for real. After a very light excursion under the surface, I opened my eyes and saw the green light already on the wall. It had gotten dark very quickly. It didn't even feel like I was tripping yet, though. I felt like I just closed my eyes for a few minutes and had a light dream. "Are you here?" I asked. "No," Ami answered. I laughed. That's how I knew it was Ami. His deadpan humor gets me every single time, even when I'm anxious or in a bad place. "Well, I made it, finally. Sorry I'm late again. So much has happened, as I'm sure you already know. In any case, I'm finally here." "Glad you made it," he said. "You've got some work to do tonight." "Yeah," I said. I hoped it wasn't too painful, but I know coming into a trip with the intentions of, quote, remembering who I am and returning to myself probably won't be all fun and games. Getting stuck in the mud off-road implies a long drag and a tow back onto the road again. "I think I need to go," I said, feeling a strong wave coming up. "Hurry up," Ami said. "You're late for the merge and you've got some ground to cover." I didn't hear what he said as I closed my eyes, but immediately I saw the familiar machinery, all those beautiful geometric panels and patterns that make up the spaceships and the places they gather. Everywhere there were soaring columns like giant vents or some kind of ducts made of matte black paneling, and circuit board-like patterns that seemed to breathe and change. The panels were traced in sparkling pink, orange, purple, and blue lights, and occasionally an energy burst would travel the length of the huge structure and sparkle with a pure crystal white light. With my eyes closed, I turned my head to the left and to the right, looking at this panoramic scene all around me. Every time I see this, I always say the same thing. It's so beautiful and fascinating, I could stare at it all day and never get enough of it. They were talking to me in their language without words. That was all chattering and clicking noises, but my brain was translating it into English. My thoughts were in English too, and I noticed that seemed out of place. I wanted to try to drop the language like I'd done on trips before and just communicate like they did, but I wasn't able to do it for very long. It takes practice to do it deliberately because my mind kept reverting back. It also takes a higher dose than 4 grams to bypass the language center on your brain without even trying. It's happened a few times, but I've never had an opportunity to do it on purpose like this time. We were traveling really fast. Late for the merge went through my mind again, but how do we find them? And where, I wondered, and who? The particular ship I was flying asked if I trusted him, and I said of course. Then don't think, just be. If you catch yourself thinking, come back to this and just be here, and trust will get there, he said. My very good friend gave me the most awesome gift of a notebook that has very special significance, especially if you've seen Flight Log number 12. The goal was to make some notes and just see what happened. Nothing was too stupid. Whatever came out was meant to. I didn't want to use ink in case it bled through the pages, which were artisan craft-style homemade paper. So I used a pencil, and unfortunately it's very light, barely readable. But it says, first of all, this is not a joke, although Evie seems to think it is. He said I need to treat myself with the same respect as any ambassador and highly experienced captain of whatever you want to call them. Spaceship sounds stupid. When I opened my eyes from the initial foray into the realm of spaceships, it was like the trip stopped for a bit. I was totally sober and lucid throughout. Then I closed my eyes, turned the page, and tried really hard to draw what I was seeing, with my eyes closed. I tried to trace the shapes on these massive soaring panels and structures, but in the morning it just looks like scratch. I do see what I was trying to do, though, at the bottom. Instead of trying to draw everything, I was concentrating on one structure that was like a Y shape above and below, connected by a panel in the middle. I can still kind of see it in my mind, but at the time, it was clear I was not going to be able to translate it with my eyes closed. My comment on the page was hard to draw, we're moving too fast, and we were. All this time we were traveling extremely fast. I opened my eyes again, and Ami was clearly there in the green light. There were geometric, translucent patterns all over the walls and ceiling, with a luminescence like the way liquid soap looks on the surface of water. I had a feeling that now that the introductory fun was out of the way, it'd be time to get down to business. Usually Ami has a tough love talk with me before the real trip gets underway, and what I've noticed is whatever is said seems to have no bearing at all on how the rest of the trip is going to go. Positive, light-hearted conversations often precede some of the toughest struggles in the night to come, while hard conversations sometimes precede wonderful nights, and the opposite applied to both situations as well. You have got to stop beating yourself up and beating yourself down, he said. You're not only your own worst critic and worst enemy, but you sabotage your own efforts, downplay your strengths, and talk down to yourself, breaking your own heart every day until your physical body is reflecting what it thinks you believe you are, and it's terrible to watch. You say you want to remember who you are apart from all the things in life. We've shown you again and again. You've seen more than most people ever have, and yet you still fall backward into self-depreciating thoughts that undo any positive gains that you might have made here. I said nothing. As always, he was right. Somewhere during this part, co-pilot Cat positioned himself right behind my head on the arm of the couch as I sat longways with my head on a pillow. He was purring rhythmically as he breathed. Cats seem to like to put their bodies wherever you're hurting, I've noticed, and it's like he knew the problem was in my head. You've done some amazing things and you know it, and I'm not just talking about over here, Ami said. That's extra. You've done amazing things in life. Just look at it all. And yet you say you feel like you haven't accomplished anything or done what's expected of you. You say it's such an honor to have a guide like me, but then you can't say why I say that I'm honored to work with you. You can't understand that part. You need to treat yourself with the same awe and respect that you treat the spaceships and how they look at you. The same awe that you give to everything over here, to me, to your friend Abu. You need to apply that to yourself. You aren't on the same road as most other people, so what's expected of anyone else isn't applicable. Go under again, he said. I closed my eyes, but I could still hear him. You're the result of 10,000 generations. It's taken that many to get one who chooses to walk the sacred path. It doesn't choose you, you choose it. And it's not easy. It's fraught with danger and difficulty. You follow that path that your spiritual ancestors followed before. Anyone who's walked that path is your spiritual ancestor, regardless of Earth family. It's not for everyone, but for those who choose it, they bring back a message for the people, and that's exactly what you're doing. I saw an ancient woman wrapped in a light yellow blanket decorated in ceremonial patterns. She had dark hair that was wrapped under a blanket or shawl, and she stood there with her eyes closed, listening. You've been shown again and again what you are and who you are, and either you don't believe it or something's blocking you. I think it's a little bit of both, he said. And we talked about life and death and the fact that these cats are getting older and time is coming soon when at least 2 of them will be gone. And my parents. I don't even want to think about the day that both of them are gone. But I know I've asked him before, but I asked again. when my parents go, can you be there to walk them home? And me too, when it's my time? Sure, I'll be there, Ami said, but your mother is always there to walk you home also. Whether they're on the other side yet or not, you see them. So my grandmother, what was her name? Loretta? She'll be there to walk my mom home, and my grandma will be there for my dad? Yes, Ami said. Everyone will see their mother first, just like in life. What if somebody had a bad relationship with their mother, or there was abuse or something? I asked. Ami said we revert back to our true selves before life, and bad things that turned us one way or the other. He said every mother was once a child themselves who wanted love from their mother, so that's what they become again when it's time to walk their child home, no matter what happened in life. What about fathers? I said, why aren't they there? Ami shrugged. That's just the way it works. You'll have to ask the boss why he set it up that way. I left it at that. I was no one to question how stuff like that was done or why. Then I thought of another question. Why is it that whenever I go back, after any amount of time, it's like the weight of life just crushes me and I forget all of this? Why is everything so heavy right now? Why does it feel so hard to get anything done? Ami said, as he said before, that these are accelerated times, and the heaviness we feel is a result of that acceleration. Time itself is compressing, he said. It got hard to hear him for a bit, but he said something about an uplift, like energetically everything is changing and rising up, but I'm not sure how. I know that there was some kind of upgrade to this dimension a while back, and everyone in it got upgraded to match it, but whatever is going on isn't over. I asked him if whatever is happening is supposed to be good, why does it feel so bad? Why does it feel like the whole world is falling apart and people are losing sight of hope? It's why I fall back again just a few months after a trip, and it's like I have to start all over again. Like getting dragged into a quagmire of whatever the heaviness is in this world, and I can't get out without a big jump off a high dive. The heaviness you feel is everything standing in front of you to block you from doing what you need to do and coming here when it gets too tough. There are dark things that would love it if you canceled every trip and never came again. Nothing would make them happier. These things have hunted you from the beginning, and you felt it, but you didn't know the extent of it until you started your journeys here. As a child, you were a bright light, and you made a lot of noise that got attention of a lot of good things and bad things. Those bad things decided that you were someone who should be taken out before you got any stronger, and they did their damnedest to do it. I thought back on how many times I'd cheated death in accidents, surgeries, illnesses, and just the relentless dark cloud of depression that's followed me my whole life. The current state of the world the last 5 years just added fuel to the fire with all that, too. I'd been crying for a while now. Co-pilot Cat was right behind my head purring as I thought back on some of the worst times, realizing I was literally being hunted all that time. The stubbornness that kept me stuck in the same mental pattern over and over was the same trait that made it incredibly hard for the darkness to snuff out the light. I closed my eyes and said in my mind that I wanted to see the face of whatever was hunting me. Before that, it seemed like I was descending into a gothic catacomb of some kind of dark silver metal like pewter, and it was solid in some places and liquid in others. Dark entities, not demons, but something smaller and more impish, were crawling all over the walls and rising up on what looked like a dark castle that was situated on a massive chessboard. They were taunting me and testing my faith on everything. I remembered a dream from last week about finding a tan-colored card with a design on it. On the other side it said faith, and there was something written, but I don't remember it now. They were laughing and talking in riddles, getting me to say something and then twisting my own words into something else, so I was constantly defending myself. Finally, one came forward, and I knew that that was the one that was tasked with hunting me my whole life. He wasn't very impressive looking, really, just a typical ghoulish-looking thing. I asked him why he's been trying to take me out my whole life, and he just shrugged and said, "Nothing personal. I'll continue until the hunt is called." Meaning, until he was given orders to stop or something else ended the game. He didn't seem overly interested and invested in it at all. He just had a job to do, nothing personal. Yet it's been the adversarial theme in the background of my whole life, this shadow stalker, and yet he didn't even seem to care one way or the other how it turned out. Just that he kept up the hunt until he was called back. I opened up my eyes. "You were always the kid who could imagine things so powerfully that the other kids couldn't help but believe them too," Ami said, "even when they couldn't see what you could. Then when you were in the hospital, you saw some things that people don't normally get to see, even in that situation. You saw the other side without the help of these medicines, and that got the attention of a lot of various energies, good and bad. And now you've come here on purpose, doing amazing things. and they can't stop you now that you've found the way. All they can do is work in your mind between trips to try to keep you from coming back as long as possible. The longer they have their grip on you, the harder it is to come back. Look how hard it was to come here tonight. I know, the whole preparation, worrying about the noise from the neighbors and all that, had me in a state of mind where if one thing, even one tiny thing was off, the whole trip was off. Granted, when the cats are sick and needing medications mid-trip, or asthma inhalers, or have a horrible diarrhea or something, it's a huge distraction. But I was finding any little reason at all, and it just wasn't like me. Co-pilot Cat wanted to go out on the screened-in patio, so I let him out. I heard the wailing of another cat, likely a female, and he was interested, of course. I let him just go out there and remember his glory days when he was king of the neighborhood, before someone trapped and neutered him, when he was probably responsible for many litters of kittens. The night was dark and quiet, no lights at the neighbors. The moon was rising in the east over the houses and cast a blue light on everything. "Check your phone," Amy said. "Your dad just texted you goodnight." I picked up my phone and looked, but there was no message. Just then it popped up. I guess I should have been stunned, but I wasn't. It's just more evidence to quench my last embers of doubt that all of this is real and not being cooked up in my skeptical mind. I closed my eyes to go flying again. I just settled in with another spaceship, rocketing through space and time, when I began to hear the scream of several high-powered engines and the roar of tires close by. This was noise from the outside world creeping into my trip space. I kept my eyes closed. It sounded like it was on the street, right outside my neighborhood, and with my trip-enhanced hearing, I knew that there were cars and motorcycles that had to be going really fast out on the interstate about a mile away, and it was loud. These were serious cars too, not just a bunch of kids with souped-up Subarus. These were Ferraris, Lamborghinis, Maseratis, supercars, and some big-bore sport bikes from the high-pitched scream of the engines. I just laid there on the couch and listened to the absolute mayhem going on out there. They must have been absolutely hauling ass, I thought, still flying along on the other side. Once the sound of the cars began to fade a bit, I heard the wail of police car sirens following way behind. "Let's go follow them," I said to my ship as we turned to follow the sound. There were some quick instructions about honing in on a sound frequency and something about picking out a specific car if I could isolate the frequency of its engine amidst all the chaos. I just focused on the loudest one. There were lots of them there too. It's a big, mostly empty interstate at 10 p.m. on a Sunday. We were flying. I mean, flying as fast as I've ever gone with a spaceship. And while the cars and bikes were probably only going 150 to 200, we were in another plane of existence. Suddenly, it was like seeing a panoramic shot of the highway with all these supercars and bikes, and there were spaceships everywhere flying with us. Some of them I didn't even recognize that looked like something out of Voltron or Transformers. We were going so fast that pieces were flying off, and all I could see was the blur of gears turning and pistons and valves screaming and all the car's engines all at once. I could see and hear inside the other ships as there were other star pilots, all wide open guns and glory screaming, "Yeah!" as we flew with this bunch of cars. High above in the sky was Abu, Ra, in the form of the Ujat Eye and sun disk with the wings of Horus. I heard Ami's voice saying again, "Don't you dare try to analyze any of this right now, just go with it." I remember the cops. They were somewhere behind the group as I turned to look backward. Abu, Ra, Horakte said, "I am above the cops." I absolutely lost it at this point. Felt like everything was coming apart and about to explode, but the awesomeness of all these ships and entities flying along with these race cars, and no one driving had a clue. It was hilarious. Then came the best part of all. I could try to describe what happened, but I think the two recordings that I made right afterward tell it better than I could ever tell it now. Okay, again, time has stopped here between 8 and 9 o'clock. It sounds like a fucking racetrack out there. I have the screen door open, or the glass door, you can just hear the screen. I'm hearing Lambos and Ferraris and shit, like a mile away. Absolutely top gearing it down the road. And I think there's sport bikes in it. It sounds like I'm hearing some high RPMs. And then, like a minute after they start to fade, and my hearing is like Superman right now, all of a sudden all these cops go after it, and it's like they're way behind. there's like some V12 shit going on, and people are going like 250 miles an hour, and then like the cops are like way behind, and I get the winky eye from Abu. Wink, wink. He says, "You want to go fast?" And like falcon eye in the sky, and then I'm like, "Oh shit, are those the cops? Like, look, there's the cops." And he says, "I'm above the cops." Fucking, are you really for real tonight? I got both of them chiming in. Oh my god, hilarious. Oh, and I'm sitting here, and all of a sudden I see some bizarre lights in the sky, UFO shit, just kind of like buzzed the hell. Like, what the hell was that? That was not an airplane. It just all of a sudden something just kind of light, just with no engine sound, just did a weird U-turn, looked in my window, and left. It's like peace among worlds, right? Middle finger. Peace among worlds. Jesus, what the fuck? Back at you, dude. So we're flying along with all these race cars. They don't know that, I mean, we got Lambos and Ferraris and whatever. I mean, we've got like Voltron looking, Transformer looking, everything everywhere all at once, like fire all the guns at once. Everybody is following this bunch of cars right now. There are spaceships everywhere. Fucking raw. It's like everybody is wide open, balls out with these guys, and they have no clue. And they're all screaming, "This is how I want to die." Oh my god. And so I'm plugged into this guy's car. It's like this V12, I don't know, bright, or no, what color is it? Lime green thing. And I'm plugged into this guy's car, and I'm like, "We're gonna give you a boost. You're gonna wonder where this came from." But you've got a spaceship fucking locked in your car right now. It's being controlled from another dimension, and you've got fucking spaceships and Egyptian gods flying with you balls out right now. Oh my god, this is fucking awesome. So it's like 3, 2, 1, yeah! I would love to know what this guy thought. This car probably went 400 miles an hour for a very short time. Oh my god, and he's gonna wonder where the hell that came from. We were flying low, right above the green Lamborghini, and I could see inside the engine. The ship was plugged into all 12 cylinders, and that's when we decided to give him a little boost. Now, I'll never know what went through that driver's mind unless he sees this video and contacts me. All I know is he was going hell-bent on 200 when he must have seen his engine RPMs go to 0, and then he got a boost from beyond. For a short time, our hero held the land speed record in the county, likely the state also. Everyone was laughing about it for the rest of the night. I don't know how the other ships and pilots all knew to show up right then, but time and space don't work the same on the other side, but it was absolutely amazing. One of the best times I've ever had on a trip. "You're doing some really high-level Starpilot shit tonight, aren't you?" Hamid said. I laughed and agreed. "Well, you earned it. You need to have some fun and realize that all the flying, all the work with the ships that you've done has made it possible to roll with that crew tonight. And after that stunt with the green Aventador, your buddy Abu really thinks you're the shit now." That was really convenient of him to show up, given he's off duty this time of night on this side of the world, I said. "I am above the cops," he said. That was hilarious. "This is how I want to die," I recalled. Someone, possibly me, screaming. It was endlessly funny. That driver probably wondered how he ended up 10 miles south so fast and all of his buddies were nowhere to be seen behind him. Time seemed to stop again between 9:30 and 10:30. I felt that familiar wave wash over me, and I knew we were at the peak. I was only nauseous if I thought about it. I tried to sit up a bit, but moving made it all worse. I laid back down and tried to breathe through the wave. I saw an instructor who looked Hawaiian, and he was talking to me about waves. I remember on the last trip I was told to surf the waves, not fight them like a tanker ship. Rise up with the wave, match its energy with your energy, then when it subsides, let your intensity subside with it. Don't just keep fighting it after it abates, or you won't have the strength to match the next wave. As it got intense, my stomach just plain hurt, and it was pressure, like literally being pressed down with G-forces. I struggled to grab a breath in and let it out again. I squeezed my eyes tighter shut and battled the forces. I saw the black spaceship machinery panels trimmed in prisms of light begin to morph and bend with the intense pressure. The panels bulged outward and adapted to a new shape that was more angular and ornate, like Gothic flying buttresses on a cathedral, yet somehow mechanical and alive all at once. That last phase of the trip was over thanks to the ginger. I didn't need to use the emergency landing bucket. I hate nausea, I'm not going to lie about that, but I'm glad the ginger makes it tolerable, even on higher doses. Finally, time started up again after spending at least 1,000 years at 9:27 p.m. Finally, it was near 10 o'clock, and I noticed I hadn't seen Romeo or Church all night long, only co-pilot Cat. I was a little worried about Romeo since he'd been sick for so long. Just then, he jumped up on the foot of the couch. Normally, he's very shy on trips and only comes over to cuddle a few times. This time, he walked over, purring loudly, and actually sat on my chest and licked my face as if to say thank you. After that, he fell asleep on my legs for a while, and I drifted off again to the descent and landing phase. I was still getting surges and visions of beautiful imagery, and I tried to hold on to the scene as long as I could, but as I've seen before, suddenly the colors will dim and become brownish like it's all fading. It was sad because I honestly never wanted this night to end. Many times trips continue in full force until 2 a.m., but by midnight this one was slowly flickering out. What a ride though. I lay there for another hour just enjoying the cool night air and the quiet feeling of peaceful energy of the green light as I laid on my side, then on my back again, then on my other side, in that often restless part toward the end of the trip. I drank water occasionally, but now I could feel every time I did, it set off a wave of nausea. At least, it was easy to control though. It passed in a minute. "You've been quiet a while," I said to Amy, realizing that with all my talking and recounting of the trip and recording what happened live and sending it to a few people that I was allowed to send it to, I hadn't actually said much to Amy. "I've already said a lot tonight. I figured you'd be tired of it by now." "Of course not. You're the best guide anyone could ever hope to have, and I'm so grateful for tonight. You earned tonight. You've done a lot of hard work, including your art, and I know you're almost done with that project. Keep going and finish strong. Believe in yourself as much as you believe in everything else, and you'll find the daily challenges in life won't be so hard." I closed my eyes again and saw a bright silver ship with flashing bright panels that constantly morphed and changed. Around each panel were those spectrums of light and color that refracted like a crystal. It was the ship that we chased the cars with, only I couldn't really see it in detail until now. That's when I realized I hadn't recognized the ship in the midst of all the fun that we were having, but we'd flown together before. This was the ship that I flew on an earlier trip that had never flown with a pilot before. It was that young ship that was just learning how everything worked, so I helped show him how much fun it could be on that first flight. I'd wondered how it was doing and whether it had found other pilots to have adventures with. It looked different now though, more radiant, blindingly bright and beautiful, just like a crystal in the sun. I apologized for not recognizing him earlier and said I could tell he gained some experience and had amazing adventures, especially given that expert execution of tonight's hilarious boost maneuver. We had a great laugh. It was awesome, epic, legendary. Hard to top that, but I'm sure we will one day. Around 1 a.m., I rolled over and looked at the green light on the ceiling and asked, "Are you still here?" "Still no," Amy said. I laughed. "Of course. Should I go to bed now? I don't want to, but I feel like you're fading." It was getting hard to hear him. This part always made me sad. "Go to bed," Amy said. "Rest well. Take it easy tomorrow, and please come back soon this time. Make it happen. End of next month would be good." I agreed. I said I would try. I always intend to try, but life blocks me. I guess I have to realize it's coming from a place where things are throwing everything they have at me to keep me stuck. I thanked Amy for the 100th time for being there, for being a great guide, for just being, and I headed to bed. I didn't fall asleep right away. I think the trip was still slowly fading for the next hour. I'd close my eyes and see beautiful pearl-colored hexagonal shapes that were part of some creature or ship. I couldn't tell at this point. As the trip faded, the details were sometimes clear, but the bigger picture wasn't anymore. It occurred to me that I didn't sweat at all this night on the couch or feel like I was burning up with heat. Yet during the night it all caught up to me and I sweated out all the toxins I brought into the trip or something. I sweated like I broke a massive fever, and it was dripping off of me. As usual, I got up, showered, ripped everything off the bed, did laundry, and it was noon by the time I finally got up. According to my fitness tracker, I slept 10.5 hours with 2 hours and 21 minutes of deep sleep, 2 hours and 27 minutes of REM sleep. I'm always amazed how I can trip laying on a couch for 6 to 7 hours, sometimes 8 to 9 hours, and then sleep for 10 to 11 hours, as if I'd spent the whole time hiking or walking a theme park all day. The next day, I spent the whole day writing and trying to recall every detail, and even so, every time I do, I always leave out something that I didn't remember until it was too late to add it. Whatever I remember is fair game to share, unless I'm told not to because it's got personal details about myself or other people. But whatever I remember and am allowed to share is meant for everyone. I wish everyone listening could get to experience something like last night just once in their life. Thank you for joining me on this awesome adventure that is by far one of the most fun and mind-blowing trips I've ever had. As always, I look forward to your comments, emails, and DMs. You can contact me at Starpilot33 at protonmail.com or on Instagram at Starpilot33. Until next time, stay safe and healthy. If you can't fly below the radar, fly above it. And I'll see you on the other side.